I have a question for you, as a pro, as an expert, someone who lives inside of Google Ads, right? What is your take, on the move? It seems for a lot of Google Ads moving towards automation, AI. I think it's tricky because to the layman's person who just comes in, the small business owner, like, oh, great, oh, okay, I have to click less, I have to know less, I have to do less, and I kind of just leave it up to Google's, AI and the machine learning. But I read some things that actually is very difficult because AI requires so much more data to actually deliver results. So do you have a take as someone who lives in there as versus like kind of like the more, I'll say, curated or handmade Google ads versus the automation?
I do. Actually, that was the topic of a monthly meet I just hosted a few days ago. I have my own learning platform called Inside Google Ads for small business owners who want to learn about Google Ads. And part of that is a monthly meet, a monthly Google Meet, of course. And the topic this month was this: is automation your friend or foe? And this is a place where, as someone who worked at Google, my perspective is very different than most other PPC experts out there. This is where I get the vitriol on Twitter, because
Sure.
I fundamentally believe in the power of automation and that Google intends its automation to do good things for business. But understandably, those who haven't worked at Google or don't share that same blind optimism around Google as I do, see a more sinister cash grab. Google's just trying to push us towards automation to make more money for Google. So I will say, when you think about automation, kind of the way I broke it down earlier this week, there are three main ways to leverage automation within Google Ads. There's automating your bidding. So rather than choosing, I want to pay this much for this click and this much for that click, letting Google take care of bidding. For the most part, I'm a huge proponent of that. I think it saves time. I think it's great. There's automation of your targeting, which I alluded to earlier. Do you pick your own keywords or does Google pick them for you? Do you pick your own audiences or does Google pick them for you? And that's where small business owners can be at a disadvantage because, to your point, Ross, the systems need more data on what kind of targeting works in order for them to work well. So something like dynamic search ads, which is where you don't pick your keywords. Instead, Google Ads just looks at your website, figures out the right queries for you and does it for you. That only works if your website is already optimized to do well in an SEO environment. If your website doesn't do well with SEO, it's not going to do well with dynamic search ads in SEM. And that for audience data, so that's things like, do you have a large customer list of data that you can share with Google? If so, it's going to be able to go out and find more customers better for you. But if you don't have a large enough list, you're not eligible for that feature. So with targeting, in theory, it absolutely works better than manual every time if you have enough data, which many small business owners don't. And so for small business owners, my advice is to test and see. So there's bidding.
And that's true, guys out there. That's true of any ads. I don't care where you're running it. Television, the newspaper, Facebook, Instagram, Google, guy on the sidewalk spinning a sign. You need to test, see what works. Maybe that sign spinner is getting more people talk to him during lunch hour. Okay, don't have them out there in the early parts of the morning, right? Like everything related to ads, and even by extension, most aspects of digital marketing, which is the beauty of digital marketing, that you at least get data. I recognize it can be like drinking from a fire hose, but you have data to make informed decisions. And I want to say this, you brought up, I think, a very common thing, not only in marketing and not only in ads and not only, it's in life, that it needs to be either or. That the truth or the outcome can't maybe be that both are true. And for me, it sounds like it is very conceivable that two things can be true. Increased automation can be better for the person running the ads and make Google more money.
Yes, those don't need to, like, the incentives are aligned. As we saw earlier with the way ad rank works and the way quality score works, like the incentives of business owners and Google, like, are more aligned than they are not. I'm not going to sit here and say it's perfect and hunky-dory all the time, but they are more aligned than unaligned, more in common than not in common. And I've seen, you know, the way automation can just make a Google Ads account print money. Just the money printing machine. And the key, though, with automation, that doesn't mean that humans don't have a job anymore. You know, automation does exactly what you tell it to do. Nothing more, nothing less. So it really changes our jobs, whether you're a marketer, a business owner, or kind of a hybrid of the two. You need to understand how the automation works and what it's doing and what new directions you can try to push it in. It's really what we call higher value work. I think it's more interesting work, and it allows all this creativity to come into what's normally a very quantitative space. So I'd say automated bidding, for the most part, excellent. Automated targeting can be great, but can have drawbacks. The third piece of automation, which is where I'm most skeptical for now, is automated creative. Automated creative. So responsive ads, I'm a full fan of. I know most PPC experts out there hate them. I love them. I think it's great. Great. And a responsive ad just means, rather than designing an ad to exist exactly the same for every single user, you give Google Ads a few different headlines, a few different descriptions, a few different images, and it plays Tetris, kind of mixing and matching.
You kind of give it the ingredients, right? You give it the ingredients, and then it can make different recipes, if you will.
Depending on the user. So that, absolutely great. But that still requires you, a thinking human, to create the text, to come up with the images, to create the videos.